Well, I can't exactly test these here, so let's go. So I made it to Washington, D.C., and the reason I want to check this out here is because I'm looking at PolarPro's new Quartzline series of filters. And the reason I want to come here is because these are things that are always in my bag, whether it's circular polarizers, ND filters, UV filters. These are things that I always have on my lens. And what better place to check that out than the nation's capital, because there are so many applications for it right here, whether it's photos, video, slowing your shutter speed, giving dynamic movement, even removing people from your photos, getting rid of reflections from the water with circular polarizers. It is all here. But enough talking, let's go check this out and see what PolarPro's Quartzline filters have to offer. Now, probably like most of you guys, I've been using PolarPro ND filters on my drones for years now, so I was already a fan of the company, but when Quartzline came out, there's a couple things that drew me to it. You're talking 100 megapixels of resolving power, so these are gonna be some of the best quality filters that you can get on the market right now. They're made of extremely high-end materials. They have scratch resistance, oil resistance. I even love the cases that come with these. So if you guys are looking for filters, I can guarantee you that these are some of the best on the market today. Now, the main point of ND filters is to block light from your camera, and it's basically like sunglasses from your lens. Now, that might sound counterintuitive, but there are a couple reasons that we do want to do that. And the first one is going to be video. If we're shooting video, we want our shutter speed to be lower, usually around a 50th of a second. And so that's going to mean that you're going to need an ND filter in situations like this where there's just so much light to be able to lower that shutter speed and still get a decently wide aperture. So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna put one of these on this lens, and that is going to act like sunglasses for this lens and allow us to shoot those slower shutter speeds and still get crystal clear, unbelievable video quality. Now, even for photos, there are certain situations where we want to show movement because it creates a more dynamic photo than just freezing the motion completely. And those are the situations that we want something a little bit slower on our shutter speed, and that is going to mean an ND filter. And these kind of ND filters right here are going to basically give you the exact same quality as not using one, but allow you to shoot those slower shutter speeds. So when I'm shooting things like water, and when I'm shooting and I want a little bit more clouds in motion, then I'm going to use my ND filter, and that is going to get me that look that I feel is much more dynamic than what I would have got if I was shooting faster shutter speeds. Another situation is going to be time lapse. Anytime I'm recording a time lapse, I want to shoot slower shutter speeds because I need to show that same dynamic motion in that time lapse. Basically, we're trying to simulate video, and video has natural motion blur in it, and we need to also show motion blur in our time lapses. So almost always when I'm shooting a time lapse, an ND filter is going to be on my lens, and that is another situation where we need to make sure that we have these in our bag. Now, there's actually another technique that's a little bit different where we want to shoot incredibly slow shutter speeds, and that is going to be removing people from our images. Yes, there's a technique to do that. I have an entire video on it if you want to check that out, but I have been using PolarPro's 15-stop ND filter to remove people from my photos by shooting epic slow shutter speeds. I'm talking 2 to 5 minutes long at least, because I'm here in Washington, D.C., and there are people everywhere, so this is an area that I want to be able to try that. That way I don't have to remove people in Photoshop, and that way I can still get a really dynamic capture and image from my photos without any Photoshop. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. You can take a look at these ND filters. I've got links below. These are the ones that I'm using in my bag. There's a bunch of different kinds, whether you're using UV filters, ND filters, circular polarizers. There's applications for all this stuff. These are things that are always in my bag. As always, I recommend getting the biggest ND filter for your lens, or at least 2 different sizes. So for me, that means a 67mm, and then it also means an 82mm to cover my larger lenses. Stay tuned for some awesome stuff to come.